Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk, where we have real conversations with real people who have and continue to overcome adversity. In this episode, I talk with entrepreneur and life coach Christina Callaway about her journey back from planning suicide after a painful divorce to building a confidence and mindset coaching practice that serves athletes, coaches, teams, and parents, helping them reach their athletic goals one mindset habit shift at a time. What I appreciate most about Christina is while she did receive her BA degree in leadership studies, with a dual concentration in human behavior and organizational development, she understands that she is so much more than her achievements and credentials, which is why I had to have her on the podcast. Christina, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
How about yourself?
Hey, it's Monday. I'm feeling great. It's the
How are you?
beginning of spring, rebirth, new emerging things, including pollen. That's okay. It's like a rose. The thorns come with it. So you're going to complain about the thorns, or you're going to be happy you got roses.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, when that pollen hits, it hits different every year.
It does. That's okay. I'll take it. I will take it. In fact, I was just on a meeting where that was the subject. We was talking about welcome to spring and what do you like about spring? And I was just kind of reflecting, and I was like, I'm enjoying watching things move from winter into spring, and enjoying watching how the trees are getting full again. They're so barren, but they're full again. I have this mama bird that has decided that she wants to bring her new birds in from underneath my front door. And she and I are having a conversation because in her doing it, she is making a mess. I'm like, well, why you got to bring mud? Like, ma'am. And first of all, you didn't even ask me. Like, you just gonna bring up residents and then you're not even clean about it.
Yeah.
You and I have to have a conversation.
Right.
So just seeing all of that come in with spring and new life and just enjoying that. We can put up with the pollen because that's going to be temporary anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It seems like in the midst of creating a new life, there's often mud that we have to put up with, that we have to clean up later. And I'm excited to have you here with us today to tell a little bit about your story. Because I was reading through your bio and I know that you've accomplished so much. And usually when I meet people who have accomplished so much, there's so much behind the scenes that people don't know about, the things that they had to grow through, the things that they had to push through in order to be the kind of person that you are for other people. So can you tell us a little bit about your origin story and how Christina Callaway became who she is today and everything that led up until this point?
That's interesting. And like most people, when they're asked that question, they'll start spouting off their accolades. They'll introduce themselves, such as, I'm Christina Callaway. I have a bachelor's degree in leadership studies with a dual concentration in organizational development and human behavior. I've been a gymnastics director for more than 30 years. And I've been a gymnastics coach for more than 30 years, former gymnast. And I'm a certified personal and executive coach. And I focus on mindset and confidence coaching. That isn't who I am. That is what I do.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because often I'll just sit and observe and listen to how people respond to, well, who are you? And for much of the time, that's just how I would respond. And then I thought, and I was like, well, you didn't even answer the question right. I asked, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah.
And I had to do a self-reflection. And now that I am the mindset and confidence coach, I kind of coached myself through that question of, well, what makes people respond to that who are you question in that way? And I primarily work with athletes and on all levels. And I came to the conclusion that what makes people respond to that particular question of who are you in the way that we do is because we haven't been introduced to ourselves. We spend so much time becoming our professional selves that we neglect the personal self. We put on these different masks or these different hats to become that when it's time to sit with, well, who are you? It's like, and it becomes uncomfortable. It's like putting on that wool, itchy, scratchy sweater. And it's like, I'm uncomfortable to ask. I appreciate the question because I've sat with that and I do know who she is. I was married until I wasn't. I came through that period of time and it was rough because like most people, when you do get married, I took my vows till death do you part, probably almost too literal. And it was devastating. And I had to, again, we talk about the rebirth. I had to be born again in terms of finding myself because I was married for an extended period of time and learned many, many lessons from that in terms of my contributions, good, bad, or indifferent in that portion of my life. And the pain from that part of my life going away was really devastating for me. And I've never experienced that kind of pain. Hope I don't experience that kind of pain ever again. To the point where the only thing that I thought that would get rid of it was to take my own life. And so I planned for that and had created my will and thought out the plan of how I was going to actually die by suicide. And fortunately, I have a younger sister. I am one of 4 siblings. I have 3 other siblings. And I contacted her because not expecting her to talk me out of it, but just to inform her, hey, you're going to need to come and get my dog. And then it prompted her to ask more questions. And ultimately she did, talk me out of it. And so I did the work. I was in therapy longer because I was already in therapy and did the work on myself because that portion of my life or that part of my story had a period on it. It was over. I wasn't going to wake up another day with the person that I had spent the last 18 years with, but I was going to wake up every single day to look at me in the mirror and what kind of life was that going to be like? I was still creating that and I was in control of creating that. And that's what I had to decide. I still had the pen in my hand and I was going to be the author and I had to decide what the narrative, and that was the beautiful thing. And because I am a person of faith, it was me and God sharing with me his plans for me and me understanding that I was still loved, no matter what I had thought about doing, no matter what I had done, I was still loved. There was no mistake that I could ever make that would ever cause him to never not love me or never not want me. And so therefore I was able to move forward. Now, prior to me being married, I have always and will always be the daughter of my mother and father and the sister to my 2 sisters and brother. That's never going to change. I'm going to always be that. I was a former competitive gymnast, high-level competitive gymnast. I cheered at the University of Georgia, and I am continuing to be a big influence in the lives of others. And that's part of one of my mantras. I want to make a difference in the lives of others. And so I carry forth every day, making that be my focal point, that I want to make a difference in the lives of other people. And so I use my story of what I went through, the things that I thought about doing, to be an inspiration to other people who may not have introduced themselves to who they are, so that they can understand that you don't have to hide behind what you do. It's okay to meet who you are and to move forward in that.
That is really powerful. And I want to acknowledge you for sharing that, because there's a lot there that, sometimes we don't want to, even though we go through things, we don't necessarily want to share them.
Correct.
Right. With other people.
No.
How are you different on the other side of what you experienced as it relates to your perspective with other people? Right. Because like you said, you were planning to transition, and you were, notifying your sister like, hey, you're going to have to come get the dog and these other things. Do you feel like you're different with other people than you were before that experience in any way?
Definitely. Oh, definitely. I know that I am, and I have been told by others. And it's shocking for me to hear, because we all think of ourselves as being one way. And if we're fortunate enough, others will share with us. If we humble ourselves enough, others will share with us how they see us. I think we've all heard of the 360-degree evaluation. And again, if you are humble enough, others will share with you how they see you. And very recently, I had someone to share with me their viewpoint of me. And their viewpoint of me was that I was a person who didn't get rattled, and that I did not allow things to upset me. And I said, oh, that's called growth. I said, that is called growth. And they said, well, that's how I see you. And I said, well, I can remember, and I can recall a time in my life when that wouldn't be a description that anyone would have given me. And I definitely wouldn't have given it to myself. And I attribute that definitely to the coaching journey that I have decided to pursue. Age has a way of doing that to all of us. However, again, the journey that I journeyed from, in that, because that happened 11 years ago, that episode occurred in my life. And I attribute that of being able to view people where they are. It might not be what I would choose to do. It might not be the way that I choose to think, but someone else's choices, unless it is a direct impact or it affects me directly, that's how they choose to live their life. It's not going to take one bit of oxygen away from the oxygen that I'm breathing in. It's not going to affect me directly unless their decision affects me directly. But if they're making a personal decision, it's not going to. Now, I choose to live my life out loud, meaning it's more than about what I say. It's more about what people see me do. Because talk is cheap nowadays. We all can see that every day. But what is a person showing you? Like, are they walking their talk? And if I can be that example for someone else, then I've lived my life. I've lived the life that I've wanted to. I've made the difference that I've wanted to make in other people's lives. So for that person to tell me that, and that they could connect with me because of the fact that they know that being around me makes them feel comfortable, that I'm not going to judge them, that I'm not going to become upset. If they do something, or if they share something with me, I'm not going to be that judgmental person. I'm not going to jump on them and be argumentative with them or in any way like that. I'm going to allow them to express themselves. And, I may pose a question that will ask them to reflect on what the choices that they're making, but it's not for me to tell them how to live their life. I've got enough to do with making those choices for myself, and I don't always get it right myself. So
yeah, absolutely. What were some of the things you talked about doing the work during that period of time? How long was that period of time, and what were a few of the really key, I guess, things that you learned during that period of time that really helped you break through to, you know, kind of the next phase. I don't think anyone comes out of that just hair on fire and taking over the world, but
No.
they're in a better place. So what are a few things
Right.
that you learned during that period of time?
It took 4 years.
Okay.
You're right. It's not for me. Now,
Mhm.
somebody else's journey is going to be theirs. My journey was 4 years to get to a space and place where I felt
Mhm.
that I was ready to move forward, so to speak.
Mhm.
What I learned the most was how to listen and communicate.
Mhm.
And when I say, I guess I should say, I learned how to communicate. And for
Mm.
me, communicating was about listening.
Mhm.
And I learned that God gave us 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. We're supposed to
Mhm.
listen twice as much as we speak.
Mhm.
And as I alluded to before, when my marriage ended, the main thing that when I stood and looked in the mirror, the realization was I'm never going to wake up another day with that person, but I'm going to wake up every day with me.
Mhm.
And what do I need to do to be the best me that I can be for me?
Mm.
And that was the question that I kept asking God over and over.
Mm.
Help me to be the best me that I can be for me.
Mm.
And what is it that I contributed to or didn't contribute to this union that
Mm.
I am in control of fixing so that I
Mhm.
don't carry it forward? And in doing that, that was what was revealed. Be a better listener,
Mhm.
be a more effective communicator. Being right isn't always serving.
Mm.
It doesn't serve me to always be right. Like
Mm.
if you're right and you're still wrong, then what, and it sounds funny coming from an athlete, but that athlete mindset of winning and winning at
Mhm.
all costs, sometimes
Mhm.
it costs you too much. And like,
Mm.
it could literally cost you your life.
Mm.
And then the other thing I would say in terms of relationships, whether it's friendship, a partnership and a business, whether it's a marriage relationship, doesn't matter what the relationship is, love yourself first
Mhm.
and be a healthy person first
Mm.
before you go into any type of a relationship. Always consider what your needs are. And that whole image of when you're on an airplane, put your mask on first before
Mhm.
serving others.
Mhm.
It is true. It is the best form of servanthood as you can possibly imagine.
Mhm.
I'm no good to anyone else if I'm always sacrificing me.
Mm.
And I need to make sure that in order to serve others, that I am the best me.
Mhm.
And that in saying to say yes, you are going to have to say no. And then that's okay.
Mm.
You can't say yes all the time when you should say no, because then that yes becomes not good.
Like a no in an area where you should be saying yes, or what do you mean?
So for instance, when people, I'm a fixer.
Okay.
I'll just go ahead and make, I don't like to see things broken. I don't, if there's something, people will come to me often to say,
Mhm.
hey, there's this problem.
Mhm.
And I know that I'm going to be able to fix it. I know that.
Mhm.
I know that I can find solutions.
Mhm.
And however, in doing that, most times I'm going to have to stop doing something else to
Mm.
find the solution for that problem.
Mhm.
That's not always good for me or good for whomever I'm doing something for in the moment.
Mhm.
And so in telling someone else yes, if
Mm.
I've already told someone else yes, that means that I probably need to tell that other person no,
Yeah.
so that the yes that I've already committed to
Mhm.
can be better served.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Saying yes, sometimes you have to say no to a yes
Mm.
so that you can be better served as an individual. And it
Mm.
is okay to say no.
Mm.
That's okay.
Mhm. So you became a better listener. Sounds like you became better at setting boundaries instead of just saying yes to everything.
Mhm.
Okay. Was
Yeah,
there
boundaries are
anything? Yeah.
super important because during that period, I went from being a super independent, confident person
Mhm.
who would speak up, no nonsense, just I would speak up for myself, speak up for others. I literally stopped talking. I would avoid conflict. If conflict came up, I would just shut down. And like you would be talking to me and I literally would not speak. And it took 4 years. And there are still times now, if it gets confrontational, I'll just go silent.
Is that out of respect? Is that out of care? Is that out of fear?
Fear.
Okay.
Yeah, fear, because what I was in was very emotionally and mentally abusive. And so it was a way of me just protecting myself, that if I don't talk or anything like that, then it'll stop. Yeah.
And how did you decide to become an influence, like a coach? Where did that come from? Because you've been in the gymnastics, you've been a coach in that realm for a while, right? For a very long time.
Long time.
Where did it transition to wanting to help people on a one-on-one basis or on a group basis?
Right. So that grew very organically. I just, having been a gymnast myself and getting to the part in my career where fear and learning skills became a part of my journey. And I was fortunate enough to be on a team that brought in a mental trainer. And I really enjoyed the way that he worked with us and connected our minds to our bodies, because I was always connected. My mind and body always connected in terms of me being able to know what my body was doing when I was doing the physical skills.
Yeah.
It was just never explained how mentally we could connect our minds and bodies. When the mental trainer came in, that was what he did. He showed us how we could connect mentally with our body and help our body to understand this fear isn't to freeze you so that you don't perform. It is to help you to understand that your body doesn't feel safe in what it's doing, and to get you back into a safe place so that you can physically do what you're asking it to do. Once I learned that technique, I was able to then teach that to my gymnast. And I just, unbeknown to me, parents are your best, they're your best advertisers. Like that whole word of mouth, that is so true. And so when you're in a sport where all parents want to do what's best for their kids, they want them to have the best and they want them to have that advantage. Well, it takes one parent to tell another parent to tell, and especially in gymnastics, when gymnasts are going to have that fear, that's what happened. And then all of a sudden I would be at a competition and a parent from the audience would come up and say, hey, can I set up a time for you to work with my daughter? And I'm just like, wait, what? And they would say, well, she's experiencing fear, or their term would be mental block, because that's what we all knew, but it really wasn't that. And I had to explain it to them. And then all of a sudden I would started getting gymnasts that would come from other states, like 4 hours away, to come and train with me. And then so I just decided, you know what, this is a gift, because clearly they see something that, I'm thinking it's coming really natural for me. But if they're willing to drive this far, then there's something to this. And so that's how it just grew very organically. 2015, I decided to get an LLC, but I wasn't really taking it very serious. And so the pandemic hit. And then in November of 2020, I caught COVID with double pneumonia and was sick, was really sick. And I thought, you know what? I can't die with this gift. Like, this is a gift and I don't want to die with it. And 3 days after being diagnosed with COVID with double pneumonia, I enrolled into my coaching certification, because as of right now, coaching is not a regulated industry. I feel like it's coming soon, because it seems like every time I turn around, everybody's calling themselves a coach, or, and I want it to stand apart from everybody just calling themselves that. So I enrolled into a 3-day intensive through Valerie Burton. And then beginning of January 2021, I went into her second phase, which was a 6-month long intensive training, which was the second half. And I was experiencing long COVID at that point. And so July of last year, I got the certification, and as they say, the rest is history. It's the rest of the story now. So that's how I started.
Wow. What would you say was the most difficult part about that? Like, you're starting a new certification, you're adding these, additional tools to your belt, and
Mhm.
you're dealing with this very, you get really sick from this bug that's been going around.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like?
It was it was very hard
Yeah.
because number one, COVID was no joke, and the COVID that I had was no
Hmm.
joke. The fatigue, I had brain fog.
Hmm.
Um, the headache from COVID is
Hmm.
just is worse than anything you can imagine. And then I
Yeah.
had extreme anxiety from
Hmm.
COVID,
Hmm.
and two, just the timing of it. The pandemic was still just so fresh, and the isolation was still very strong, and
Hmm.
living by myself and being isolated from my family, and
Yeah.
going through this. So that was the kind of like the ugly side of it.
Hmm.
The positive side of it was I was still being able to be engaged with the community from the training course.
Hmm.
We were assigned partners. And so that was really good. I was able to reach out to friends and some of my other athletes to help me get my coaching hours. So that kept me engaged.
Hmm.
I was still also, I mean, I'm still also working full time.
Yeah.
So my whole gymnastics program was online for
Hmm.
6 months. So it was grueling. But what it showed me was that, and I've always known this about myself, is that whatever I put my mind to doing, I'm going to be able to get it done,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to persevere. So
Yeah. How does that perseverance tie into your building yourself back from divorce?
So it is one of those things where now that I look back on it, that again, I thought that the only way I could get past the pain was to take
Hmm.
my own life.
Hmm.
And I realized that in the moment when something seemed extremely difficult and painful, that if we have ourselves and we have enough people in our community and around us that can speak positively to us, and if we just hold on and persevere, that the saying, and it sounds very cliche, but it's very true, this too shall pass.
Hmm.
And I have a very strong community. I do, even in my weakest state, I still had a very strong will,
Hmm.
even though I was very depleted and didn't
Hmm.
think that I did. When you have a strong community, the will that you don't think that you have, or the perseverance that you don't think that you have, your community has it for you.
Hmm. Hmm.
My mom had gone through a very hard and difficult divorce from my father. And so she had that experience.
Hmm.
And ironically, she was strong enough to say, I can't be there for you for what you need because it's triggering for me.
Hmm.
However,
Hmm.
I can be your mom,
Yeah.
and I can find you someone who can be what you need.
Yeah.
And for a mom to be able to do that for their daughter, that's like the best gift ever. My mom is my shero and my number one
Mm.
fan and everything else. And that meant the world to me at that time, because it
Yeah.
wasn't like she was turning her back or walking away. It was just that I know what you need,
Hmm.
and I'm going to find someone who can give it to you. And then I can be this other
Yeah.
part for you.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean by having a community. And I'm just grateful for, my family's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
Hmm.
However, we do know what to be for each other in our lives in the moment that
Hmm.
we each need it. And we know when
Hmm.
to push and when to pull back. And my family was that, like, not overbearing and asking a whole bunch of questions, or being,
Hmm.
problem solvers, pointing fingers saying, you need to do this or you need to do that. So if anybody that listens to this and wants to give a takeaway, if you've got a family member that's going through anything like that, or a divorce, or a difficult relationship that you don't think that they should be in, the number one thing I will tell you, don't offer them any advice.
Mm.
That's going to push them toward that situation, or it's going to isolate them from you. And you don't want that. And they don't want to isolate from you either.
Mm.
But it's only so much that a person can take.
Yeah.
Other thing that I want to share, if anybody, for those who are listening,
Hmm.
is if you have recently lost someone to death by suicide, or someone who constantly struggles with that thought,
Hmm.
understand, number one, that the person, their thoughts of doing it is, I want to relieve my loved ones from the burden of always having to be my cheerleader.
Mm.
And if they have died by death by suicide, that was their thought. They did not do it to cause you additional pain.
Mm.
Honestly, in our minds, that's what we're doing. We're doing it as a relief. Like, they no longer are going to have to be my cheerleader, to constantly have to be burdened with, well, is today going to be the day? Or maybe I can do something to make them feel happy. This has nothing to do with anybody that's in the family. You're not doing anything wrong. This is something, the depression is just so much, and it is so painful that that's their only way of escape. Like, we literally wake up with depression and we go to bed with it. And it is just weighty. And so if that can help anyone to be able to understand the why do people do this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking from my experience, and I believe that God has allowed me to be around to share that voice, because I know I have so many people who have like, I just want to be able to ask them why. Why did they do it? Is there anything that I could have done or should have done? And just to relieve that guilt, there isn't. There's not anything you could have done or should have done.
What did your sister do that was so helpful? Because I know that there's not, I know, and I want to preface it, like, obviously there's not a one size fits all for having conversations with people who are struggling with suicidality. But was there anything that was helpful that was like, you know what, yeah, I'm gonna get some help?
For me, her listening to me and just being patient with me, letting me talk it through, and not judging me, not telling me, no, this is not what you want to do. She never used any of those words. She just held space. And I just kept saying, if I could just make it to Monday, because Monday was the day that I was scheduled to go talk to my therapist. And I just kept saying, I hate the weekends. I hate the weekends. They're so long, and I have to be by myself on the weekends, and I just don't like it. And she just kept encouraging me and just saying, you know, you can make it. I know that you're going to be able to make it, you know, and just saying, you know, what is it that you would need that would help you to get to Monday? And I just said, I don't think that there's anything that I, you know, and then she just let me cry when I needed to cry. And it wasn't like she was in a rush to get off of the phone or anything. She wasn't even in the same state. Like, I'm in Georgia, she's in Texas. The amount of worriedness, the amount of, I just can't even imagine what her adrenaline must have been feeling like at that time. Knowing that she wanted to get near me and get to me, and she couldn't. And she was just pleading with me to stop and park my vehicle. You know, and I think her even saying, you know, if I have to just be on the phone with you all night, then I'll be on the phone with you all night. Even though I know she was panicked, I couldn't hear panic in her voice. Even though I know that she was afraid, I couldn't hear it in her voice. Even though I know that she was crying, I couldn't hear it in her voice. All I heard was calm, and that it was her time was my time, and however much of it I needed, she was willing to give to me. And there was no judgment. And she waited until I got all the way back home, and I got back in the house, and I was in the bed. And even then it was like, you know, whatever else you need, just let me know. You know, if you want to talk some more, we can talk some more. And because she heard me say, I just don't want to be alone. Like, I hate weekends. I hate the loneliness. And she just listened to that.
That's really powerful. And I'm grateful for her. I know you are too.
I am. Yeah. We're super close. So yeah.
I always talk with people about having those few key people, and sometimes they could turn out to be the most influential people in your life. It sounds like your mother and your sister are perhaps two of those people.
Yes, they are. Very.
Yeah.
My mom and my sister. And then I would also say that the kids that I work with, that, because I learned so much from them, just, you know, like the mistakes that that I've made, and just being able to learn from their innocence and things like that. Yeah. Yeah. That would be like, in terms of influential people, just knowing that it's okay when you make a mistake, because kids are so forgiving.
Yeah.
They really are. They aren't going to hold it against you. I mean, it's like, if you do something and it's like 10 minutes or 15 minutes later, they'll come back like,
yeah,
nothing happened. Like, it's okay. And I think in a time and times that we live in now, it's good to be like that, because you never know. You don't ever know when will be the last time that you see somebody. So, and at the end of the day, it's not really even that big of a deal. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say has been your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it?
My biggest failure, and what have I learned from it? That's a really good question. I guess the biggest failure would be just feeling like that I always had to, number one, believing the myth of perfection. And being grateful for the fact that I finally learned that in order to be successful, that you have to fail. That success comes from failure, because no one learned their ABCs going from A to Z without making a mistake. No one learned to count from 1 to 10 without forgetting that it's 1, 2, 3, consecutive. And so that there is no such thing as perfection. Excellence is a good word, but it's in the pursuit of excellence that we will strive to get things, but that elusive perfection it's not there. And so I think of it like perfectly imperfection. That's what I like to think of it like, that. And it's okay. That whole thing of us trying to have to color between the lines, and I'm still a work in progress, because I actually picked a sport that doesn't believe in that. Judged on every mistake that we make. Go figure that. Yeah.
So how do you recast a vision? Right. I think that when you, in your relationship, right, been together for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you've casted a vision, right? And maybe that vision, you're on track, maybe you're not. Maybe you are, and then something blows up, right? And you're like, whoa, that's gone. So then you have to like recast a vision, right? And I'm sure you had to recast a vision for yourself after everything that you experienced during that period of time. What are a few of the key pieces on how to do that?
So I think for anyone, that when you're recasting a vision, I spent a lot during those 4 years. I spent a lot of time in my faith, just getting to know God closer. And so I spent a lot of time reading my Bible. So I take everything back to like parables and things like that. So this can be pretty much applicable with most anything. Whenever you try something and it's not successful, or even if it is successful, it matters not, but you want to go to the next level in it. I think it's always best to focus on what worked, because even in the failures, something worked. And take what did work and figure out how to make it 1% better. Just 1%. Because if you think about making it like so much grander, it's going to be overwhelming and too much. And most people are going to be like, yeah, that's going to be too much of an effort. I'm not going to go after that. But if you think about just the 1% that you can take it to that next level, then on the next level, it's just 1 more percent. And then 1 more percent. The reason that I choose to not focus on my weaknesses because of the fact that if I do it like an 80-20, there's 80% of me that is awesome.
Yeah.
There's only 20% of me that's not.
Yeah.
And if I spend a whole lot of energy on 20%, that 20% is probably only going to get better by a couple of percentages.
Yeah.
Whereas I've got 80% that if I put a lot more effort into, it's going to get better.
Yeah.
So in my mind, the math only makes sense to put the effort into what the odds are for me in terms of getting better. So if I look at the parable of the men who were fishing and they had fished all night and they were just like, the fish are not biting. Take it back in.
Yeah.
And just before they did, Jesus was like, wait, why are you giving up?
Yeah.
And they're like, but they're not biting.
Yeah.
And he's like, but cast it on the other side.
Mm.
And they're like, well, what difference does that make? The water's all around the boat.
Right.
But he's like, just trust me, cast it on the other side. So the whole idea is sometimes we just are looking on one side of it. We're focusing on the 20%.
Yeah.
We've got a whole 80% that it could have just been a whole little pool that had the fish in it. And that's just where they were eating and feeding. And if we're always just so focused on the 20%, we're missing where the fish are biting. And so that's my mindset as it relates to that. Just grab whether it was a failure or whether it was a success, because success to you is going to look different than it is for me, but it doesn't mean that it's not success. It just means that it looks different. Take the success from it, take one and go up 1%. And each time you improve, then you're going to grow bigger and bigger, and you're going to go to that next level in everything that you do.
That's powerful. It sounds like there's a few things that are learning opportunities from that. I was on a call earlier today with a commercial real estate agent, and we were talking about kind of her journey from being a city manager to becoming an entrepreneur as an agent, and how you don't learn how to prospect when you work for the government because you don't have to. But she was talking about the book 3 Feet from Gold, which talks about like staying persistent and staying after it. But in this example of the fisherman, there's a few things. Is that number one is you need to be open to input from someone that has more experience or perspective than yourself. Number two is you need to actually work. So you need to work at it, right? Like you can't be at the house trying to catch fish. And number three, you need to be open to making adjustments.
You have to make your adjustments.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I work for local government too, and I prospect all the time. They put you there. That's the best opportunity because it's not costing you to be able to go to these conferences, and boom, there is your whole pool of fish. It's just all in perspective, it's all in perspective and the opportunities that are presented before us and whether or not the individual is prepared. You also have to be prepared. They were prepared. They had the tools. Their mindset wasn't right. And so he had to do the shifting. My whole motto for my coaching business and the way that I work with my athletes is see it, say it, do it. You got to see it first up here. You got to believe it. You got to say it, meaning first you're going to visualize it, then you're going to affirm what it is that you have visualized. And then the action comes where you actually do it. And it's in that order where you are seeing it, you're going to say it, and then you're going to do it. And then it happens. Yeah.
So a lot of people that I talk with, or sometimes there's this conversation around, I'm not wired that way. I'm an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. And if you're asking me to do extroverted things, I'm never going to do it. So don't ask. Would you say that you're an introvert or extrovert? And how do people, if they are introverted, how do they navigate the world and still pursue the goals that they have set upon their heart that require extroverted activities?
Right. Very good question. I'm going to answer it like this. We all are a little bit of both. And so that makes us ambiverts. I lean more toward being an introvert at heart. I would rather be in the comfort of my home. That's where I'm more natural and more comfortable. However, when it comes to the things that I desire and my passion,
Mm-hmm.
I am extremely extroverted. I will rise to the occasion. I will get it done. So to the individuals who say I'm an introvert and, that's just how, I'm not that person that's going to just be going out there and jumping and going and getting it. My first question is going to be to them, when it's your passion, what is the one thing that's preventing you from getting out there to do it? Is it speaking? Is it networking? Is it both? If it is, I invite you to join Toastmasters, because that is going to help you to become more comfortable with that, because it's your passion, and your passion is going to pull you or push you. It is not going to let you stay in that introvertedness, because it's your passion. Yeah. And if it's something that you don't really care about, then you're going to blow it off and you're going to be that introverted person. Yeah. If you're an extrovert and you're just like really too much, you're like all up in people's faces, and that repels people from being able to hear what you have to say. Yeah. Again, I still invite you to join Toastmasters, because that is going to help you to network in a manner that is not so shocking, but it will help you to be able to control that, so that people will be able to hear what it is that you have to say, instead of just being that shock and awe. Yeah, that would be my advice, because I actually did join Toastmasters, not because I didn't like speaking. I've got the gift of gab. I can sell ice to an Eskimo, but I didn't like the networking. Like, I didn't like going into rooms and having to like introduce myself to people. Like, wait, what? I'll see you at the house. Like, I don't do that. But when people see me, they're like, there's no way that you're not an extrovert. Yes, I am. But I joined Toastmasters to learn how to be comfortable with networking and going into a room and walking up to people that I don't know and introducing myself to them. Yeah. And so now I'm extremely comfortable with that. And I would say to them, for the introverts, go take yourself out to eat. Go take yourself to the movie. If you're single, go do that. Yeah. And the more comfortable you get with doing that, the more you're going to be able to, because Toastmasters teaches you how to do that elevator pitch. They have things called table topics where you speak, and you get engaged and you learn how to speak very comfortably in 60 seconds, very short and brief and to the point. And it will help you to get over some of all of that you're feeling like. But I bet you, when you Google it and you figure out like the percentage of people in the world that lean more toward being introvert than extrovert, it'll shock you. But most of us are ambiverts by nature. Yeah. Yeah. What's a common myth about like what you do professionally that what do you wish most people knew about coaching instead of what they believed they knew about coaching? Yeah, thank you for that question. We are not motivational speakers. That is not what we do. I'm not here to cheer you to happiness. That is not what I do. Now granted, there are some that shall be nameless that have really big names and really big titles, and they have slapped coach right before their name, but they are motivational speakers. So a coach is someone who helps you set your goals and partners with you to help you to figure. We don't solve your problems. We just help you to see what's already there and ask you the questions that will help you reach those goals. So when you think about a coach, you actually think about like your favorite sports team and the coach that has that group, but this is your own private individual one-on-one coach that helps you to get to your goals. But we are not your motivational speakers. That's not what I am. I am not a motivational speaker. Do I speak? Yes, but I am not a motivational speaker. Yeah. But you motivate people, right? Like, I feel like I'm pretty motivated after listening to you today. Yes. Yay. We do. So we do offer that because we speak with confidence. Yeah. And so most people who hire us don't have confidence. That's what they want. And so if you were to hire me as a coach and I didn't speak with that confidence, you probably wouldn't hire me. Right. You'd be like, oh. I'm pretty sure I don't want to work with her because she's
Yeah.
second guessing herself. She doesn't have a backstory. She didn't overcome not one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But she's telling me that through working with her, that she's going to give me the tools that's going to help me to visualize where it is that I want to go,
Mm-hmm.
use affirmations. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to speak what it is, and then I'm going to have to do some work to get there. It's not just about hocus pocus,
Right.
oh, I'm going to see it, then I'm going to say it, and then poof, it's going to be there. No,
Mm-hmm.
not working with me. It's not like that. There's
Yeah.
work involved in it. Like you go back and do practical things, and then you come back and we look at it again, and my clients tell me this worked, that worked, no, that did not work, and we do it again. Until they get the results that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the youngest client that I worked with is 5 years old. And if a 5-year-old can get their voice and can actually speak and to be able to express themselves and can speak up for themselves and get their voice to say, that doesn't work for me, then I know adults can do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So oftentimes we hear about the story of the dash, right? The story of the dash is you're born X year, you transition X year.
Live your
And
dash.
and the dash is about really how do you want to be remembered?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say, if I gave you the mic today and it's like, okay, here's an opportunity. What do you want to be remembered for? What would you say?
Right. And living my dash, I want people to remember me for being that person that, as an influencer, I want them to remember me as that person that encouraged others, that inspired others, that empowered others to be all that they could be in their own life, that they represented themselves to the fullest, and that they lived their dash to the fullest, that they lived it and it was completely empty when it was time, when their time was up, just like mine is going to be empty by the time that it's up. I don't want to leave anything undone. And I don't want anyone else that is connected to me or that has an experience with me or that passes through my life to leave anything on the table. I want them to live a full life, whatever that looks like for them, whatever that means to them. I want them to pass it on. I want them to influence others the way that I influence them. And so if them passing through my life, if I can just offer that, live your dash, influence others through being positive, through encouraging, through empowering, whatever that means. If you have the power to do it for another person, take the time out to do it. It's not going to, kindness costs nothing. And it doesn't cost you anything to help another person. And whatever it does, it's just cost you time. And time is going to pass anyway.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have a follow-up question to that. Growing up, I experienced losing friends, losing mentors that weren't necessarily mentors, but people that I looked up to. Like I had one gentleman who he and my uncles used to work together. So they used to remodel homes together. And he was killed due to gun violence. I lost another high school friend to gun violence. And just growing up through some of the things that I experienced during that period of time, death became a real thing. My own mortality became a real thing. And so I think that the other day I was driving and I was wondering, like, why am I so driven and so motivated? And I think some of that has to do with that realization of your own mortality.
Yes.
And so I guess the question I would have to you about that is like, how do you wrestle with the realization of your mortality and not wanting anything to be left without it being tied to some form of anxiety and not being able to appreciate the present?
Right. So living in the moment, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an excellent question. And it's easier for me to say than it is easy for me to practice. And that is to wake up and live each day as if it's your last one. So give everything that you have in this day.
Yeah.
So the whole saying, give me this day my daily bread. Most people, want to attach that to food and clothing. And so one of the things when I wake up every morning, I thank God for the day and I give the day back to him. And I say, God, show me this day what you would have me to do. And when this day is over, it is my prayer that I will have learned something that I did not know before I come back and go to sleep, and that I will have given all of me to this day and to those who pass my way. And so with the idea that the day is a gift that is being given to me, and that I am a gift that has been given to the day, and that we don't own anything and we don't own anyone. And so just knowing that, and that we are his gift. And life is the gift that keeps on giving, even when we don't see that gift anymore, because like you just said, you can still feel the residue from those individuals. And so just knowing that for me, that even when I am no longer present physically, I am going to still be present, because I am a legacy that's going to keep on. And I have no children of my own. However, I have been blessed to be an impact and an influence in so many thousands of children's lives, that my legacy is still going to live way longer than I. And so that's my goal. And that's my focus on what is the legacy that is going to outlive me. And so that helps me with my anxiety. So I hope that me sharing that will help you and anyone else listening, because that is real. And at one point I thought about that as well, not having kids, what that would feel like, because I used to think, well, I don't have anything to leave. And then God corrected me and said, oh, but you do. You have the opportunity to influence the kids that I'm allowing to you to touch their lives. And so that will be a legacy. And whether people realize it or not, like we've been using the word influence and influencer, whether people realize it or not, being an influencer is not relegated to celebrities, athletes, or stars. We are all influencers by the community of people that you pass through every single day, whether or not you are asking for it, but anyone that looks up to you, anyone that comes to you for advice, that makes you an influencer. So it doesn't matter how many likes you get on social media. It doesn't matter if you have a blue check mark on social media. That doesn't make you an influencer. You are an influencer, good, bad, or indifferent. So keep that in mind, because of the very fact that you are alive and breathing. That makes you an influencer. So guard it. It's precious. And it's meaningful, and it has a responsibility and an impact that is far reaching than you will ever know.
I'm going to listen to that a few dozen times, because that's really powerful and that's great advice. As we close up, is there anything that you want to leave with our listeners in terms of takeaways or ways to connect with you, or what they can bring to their day tomorrow, starting in the morning?
Well, thank you for that. As far as social media, yes, they can connect with me on all of my social media. I am on Facebook, and I am on Instagram, I am on LinkedIn, and I am on YouTube.
All right.
It's really easy to find me. Christina Mindset Coach, and Christina is with a CH. And you can email me at christina@christinacc.com. And when you go on my website, you can also schedule a clarity call. As I said, I work with athletes. I don't only work with athletes, but that's my primary audience that I work with. But if you want to schedule a clarity call for mindset or confidence, I would love to do that. It's a 15-minute free, no obligation call that you can do. And something that I could leave with you when you wake up in the morning, just again, what I do when you wake up and you're given the day, just thank God for the day and give the day back to him. Ask him what it is that he wants you to get from the day. And just ask him to use you to be the best influence that you can be for those that he will allow to pass your way. And then ask him what he wants you to get from the day, because he wants to give something to you as well, because that's just who he is. And then be ready to go through the day. Don't get so bogged down and busy in your day, but notice the small things. It can be, like I said, even the bird that's making her nest, but she chose my house out of all the ones that are here, and it's her nest falls every day because she's picked the worst spot. But just notice the small things, because there's messages in everything, even the small things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you for being with us today.
You too. Thank you for having me.